The day I picked up this F-150 Tremor, Ford unveiled a Raptor R with 700 horsepower and all kinds of man stuff energy. But rather than fret over what this Tremor package doesn't have, I think a lot of you out there shopping for a Ford pickup with some off-road cred would do just fine with this thing, not to mention the tens of thousands of dollars you could save in the process. But buyer beware, that part's not a guarantee. For more expert car reviews, don't forget to share our channel and subscribe so you can catch some of this and maybe even a little of that. Look, whether it's that new R version or any other Raptor, daily driving one of those things, it's a bit like hopping on a carbon road bike in cargo shorts and flip-flops to head down the street to your favorite ice cream shop to enjoy a cone. Total overkill. I'm sorry, not trying to dunk on any of you Raptor owners out there, but it's just kind of silly. And that is where a truck like this one comes in, because it does have some off-road upgrades, but they don't detract too much from what makes this truck so popular as a daily driver. If you really do need a truck, which is debatable, I don't care what you say, the average truck buyer probably doesn't need one. So if you just want one, yeah, this will do the trick. It's got upgrades over the regular F-150. It's got some suspension upgrades, again, FX4 enhancements, so it's got unique suspension tuning. It rides about an inch or an inch and a half taller, bunch of skid plates, tow hooks, really cool. Now there are some upgrades that are not standard with the Tremor package, starting with the styling, and it surprised me a little bit. Exterior wise, yes, it's all there. The stickers on the bed sides, the badge on the back, that cool little yellow anodized strip across the grille, all of that is standard with every Tremor. But in here, this is the stuff that isn't standard. You get the stitching on the seats, but not the piping, not these Tremor logos that are embroidered on the seats. That really bums me out. If you just get the base Tremor, well, it's got nothing. And then if you step up to the next mid package, I think it's called, you get embroidery on the front seats with the cloth, but you got to step all the way up to the high package if you want embroidery on all the seat backs. So that's something to note, because to me, part of this is the look. Part of it is, you know, showing off to your friends or just feeling good that you bought a cool version of a pretty average truck. This is the best-selling truck in Canada after all. So if you want yours to stand out, well, it'd be nice if it stood out in here too, but you got to shell out the big bucks if you want that to happen. Some other stuff to note about this truck: it only comes in a crew cab configuration with the 5.5 foot bed, of course, 4-wheel drive, and only the 3.5 liter twin turbocharged EcoBoost V6. Good engine, but it means you can't get the hybrid, which is phenomenal. So that disappoints me just a little bit. This thing makes 400 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque on its own. So plenty of output to work with, whether you're on the road or the trail. Now there is a bit of turbo lag, but I only really notice it when I'm gentle on the throttle, really low in the rev range. And even then, when you're on the trail, you can activate this one pedal drive mode. So it's kind of like hill descent control, but all the time. You don't have to be descending a hill. You can be on a flat surface. And when you just kind of tip into the throttle gently, it almost has a diesel-y sound to it, and that goes with that turbo lag. It takes a bit of time for them to spool up, so down low you're going to notice that. But otherwise, once you get your foot into it, it doesn't matter what drive mode you have it in, even the eco mode. And the cool thing is, this has a great exhaust setup. Dual tips sticking out of the bumper, 2 little cutouts, looks really cool. Sounds really good too. Those are the main differences with this Tremor trim. So where does it fall in the lineup? Well, it's kind of weird, okay? Because it's priced at about 65 grand before tax to start, which is about the same as the Lariat, but it's really more of an XLT with some upgrades. Case in point, no standard heated seats, and that to me is absolutely mind-blowing, because this starts at $65,000 and you don't get heated seats. If you want those, you got to pay for the $5,500 mid package, and then if you go all the way up to the high package, that's about $16,500. You get heated and ventilated front seats, a heated steering wheel, leather upholstery, heated rear seats. It's a good package, But to me, a lot of that stuff should be included for that $65,000 starting price. Now, aside from that high package, this one I'm driving has a whole bunch of other upgrades too, okay? It's got this panoramic sunroof, a 12-speaker stereo, something like that. I think there are speakers in this headrest like the old Pontiac Fiero, all kinds of extras, but that makes this a $90,000 truck. Not only is that similar to the F-150 Platinum, but it's only about $5,000 less than the starting price of the Raptor, which goes back to what I said earlier, where the savings, they're only realized down low in the Tremor lineup. Because if you're gonna drop $90,000 on this and you really want an off-road rig, well, what's an extra $5,000? And I know you could say that about any truck, but really, that is something to consider. It really does stand out to me because yes, this is still a better daily driver than a Raptor, but $90,000 is a lot of money. And yes, this does feel luxurious at that price point, but still, I'd have a hard time spending that much on what's kind of an off-road light, not quite a luxury truck. It really does fall in this weird place in the F-150 realm where it's not everything. It's kind of close to being one, not quite close enough to the other. Little bit of a weird situation, but it does feel like a regular F-150. That is a bit of a sore point for me because I feel like Ford could have done a little bit more to help this stand out. Now, getting back to that off-road stuff, again, it's got all those suspension goodies, and we're gonna hit a trail here shortly so you can see what it's like. Bunch of different drive modes to run through. It's got a locking rear differential. It's also got a limited slip front diff. That is optional, but this truck has it. And with that high package, it's also got Ford's trail turn assist system. It's a little bit of a gimmick, okay? Because it's called trail turn assist, but you'd need a pretty wide trail to use it, because what it does is it locks the inside rear wheel. So whichever way you're turning, it's gonna lock that wheel so that you can pivot on it. But it's not a very tight turning radius. So something to show off to your friends. Maybe if you're out in a gravel lot or a sand dune, it works, but on a trail, you can't really use it. You're better off making a 8-point turn than trying to use this trail turn assist system. But some other cool stuff, when you have those different drive modes engaged, like the mud and rut setting, it pulls up a live look with that front camera with tire tracks on it, so you can see where your tires go. And that's great if you're out without a spotter. Not smart. I always recommend having a spotter with you, but if you find yourself somewhere maybe you weren't expecting and you don't have somebody to keep an eye on the trail for you so that you can spot your corners, it's nice to be able to pull that up on the screen. So we're gonna have a little bit of fun out on a trail and see what this truck is all about. Okay, look, this is not some serious hardcore trail, because this isn't some serious hardcore truck, but also we live in the GTA, okay? There aren't many trails around for us to use, so we're using what we've got access to. But this thing is a decent trail to check out what this Tremor trim is capable of, because I think, again, this thing is not a Raptor, which has its benefits, especially out here. It's not as wide as a Raptor. Now, it does have a bunch of different drive modes, including sand and mud and ruts. There's even a rock crawl mode, and all of those automatically switch the four-wheel drive system on. They also lock the rear differential, which is pretty cool. And then that limited slip diff up front that this one has optionally, well, it's a Torsen, so it's a torque sensing limited slip differential. So I can't engage it, it just automatically does its thing. Now, again, this is not a hardcore trail, but hey, this thing has what it needs. It's got the ground clearance, it's like 10.9 inches of ground clearance, that specially tuned suspension, those revised knuckles and hubs and whatever else Ford says this thing's got. I have no reason to doubt that it's here for a purpose. That purpose to make it a little more capable, to help with that suspension articulation. And again, we're not doing anything too crazy, but it does feel really sure-footed. But then again, it just feels like a half-ton truck to me. The tires, huge benefit. I always say that to you guys. It doesn't matter whether you're out on the trail or whether you're out on the track. If you're looking to upgrade your vehicle, one upgrade that you're gonna notice the most, tires. These general grabbers, you don't need to upgrade because these are something that you would usually add after the fact. They are very good. They're perfect for this kind of stuff. And they're also decent on the road, though they do generate quite a bit of road noise. That's something else to keep in mind. But otherwise, the other thing to remember, this is a half-ton truck. It's quite wide. It's big. It's not going to be very nimble and agile. So maybe if you want a truck like this, but you want something to do some serious off-roading in, well, the Ranger Tremor might be the better pick because it's smaller. It can get into tighter places. But again, this thing's doing just fine. Not surprised at all. But hey, if you're looking for an off-road ready pickup truck, this is it. It'll do exactly what you want it to. Well, now that we're back out on the road, we do need to talk about some things, starting with all of those upgrades that made this thing a little more capable out on the trail. Well, they do chip away at what's already a fairly inefficient truck. Now, trucks in general, they aren't exactly fuel misers unless you get the hybrid or that new F-150 Lightning all-electric truck. But anyways, this thing, well, it's rated to burn a combined 13.2 liters per 100 kilometers, which is pretty atrocious on its own. It's a little more than a liter worse than the same truck without the Tremor kit. So if you get this twin turbocharged V6, four-wheel drive, all that stuff, it's rated for 12.1 liters per 100 kilometers. I've been right around that 13 liters per 100 kilometers all week with a lot of highway driving, but more importantly, very little time spent with the four-wheel drive system engaged. Up until we hit that trail, I'd barely put it in four-wheel drive. Now, it does have an automatic setting, which I love to see, especially after the last truck I reviewed, which was the new Toyota Tundra. You guys have already watched that review because you subscribe to the AutoTrader YouTube channel, and you know I complained that it does not have an automatic setting for the four-wheel drive system, and that to me is a no-brainer these days. It's really what makes trucks so user-friendly in a country like Canada. Set it and forget it. It's an automatic setting, so if it detects wheel spin in the back, it's going to send torque to the front wheels, but otherwise, it's going to run in rear-wheel drive, which is a little more efficient. But keeping that in mind, I'm still at that 13 mark this week with it in rear-wheel drive. So, not looking too good. I don't know, I'm gonna spend a little more time on the trail later this afternoon. I'm sure that number is only going to climb. Anyway, some other stuff to talk about, all those suspension upgrades and those general grabber tires, 33 inches, they do help out on the trail, but all of that stuff out here on the pavement, they make this thing feel very squishy and tippy. I've spent quite a bit of time in this current gen F-150, in the Lariat, in the Platinum, the V8, V6, hybrid, the works. And they've all felt fairly stable, whereas this thing, you can definitely feel all that squishiness. And it's not exactly unnerving, but it just doesn't feel as kind of direct and controllable as your average truck. And I noted the same thing with the Ranger Tremor back when I tested that. It really is symptomatic of the upgrades that you have here. So it's something to keep in mind. And something else to keep in mind, those tires, quite noisy. So are these door mirrors. They are huge. They're great when you're towing, but they mean all kinds of wind noise out on the highway. And speaking of towing, Ford says this thing with the tow package can pull 11,900 pounds, which is a ton. Well, actually, it's about 5.5 tons. Okay, bad joke aside, it's like I always say, that is a lot of weight for a half-ton truck. So be smart. If you plan to tow anything that heavy, you're better off upgrading to a bigger truck. And if you get something like the Super Duty from Ford, well, hey, you can get the Tremor package with that thing too. So if you really have your heart set on the look and feel of this truck, you can get the bigger version. No sweat. Anyways, we're getting close to the end here, so let's talk about some of the user-friendly features in here, like this 12-inch touchscreen, but again, not standard. If you get the base Tremor, you only get an 8-inch screen. If you want this 12-inch one, you got to step up to that mid or the high package. The high package, you also get this 12-inch digital instrument cluster. It is great. So is this infotainment system. Probably not quite as good as the one in the Toyota Tundra, but as far as feature count, absolutely, this thing is killer. It's got wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. It's got built-in nav at the top of the lineup, all kinds of cool stuff, including an optional onboard inverter. I've talked about this before. Ford calls it Pro Power on board, I think, something like that. Anyways, it's a built-in inverter, turns this thing into a mobile generator. Even with this gas version, you can still get a 2 kilowatt inverter. That's 2,000 watts. Most trucks, it's like 6, maybe 800. Now, if you go with the hybrid, again, you can't get that with this Tremor trim, but if you go with the hybrid, it comes with a 2.7 kilowatt generator, and you can upgrade to something like 7.2, and then the F-150 Lightning, you can get like a 10 kilowatt generator, so you can run all kinds of stuff. You can even plug your trailer in while you're on the road, and that means you can keep your beer cold in the fridge, keep that air conditioning running so that when you get to the campground, and apparently it doesn't draw any power from the engine, so you're not going to feel it straining any more than it would with just the trailer hooked up to the back. Anyways, lots of good stuff, built-in Wi-Fi hotspot. Of course, you got to pay for that with a subscription, satellite radio, all kinds of cool stuff. My only issue really is the runaway pricing, because this thing is quite expensive as it sits. And again, it doesn't feel that much different than your average F-150 to help justify that price tag. To recap, I like the F-150 Tremor's styling tweaks and capability, and that it's based on such a well-rounded truck to begin with. I don't like that it's been stripped of some basics like heated seats, how quickly the price climbs with extras, and that it doesn't feel that special next to a normal F-150. Whether this is a compliment or a criticism is up to you, but I don't think this thing feels that different or special than the average F-150, and part of that is definitely by design, with the Raptor looming large here. But I take a look at the Honda Civic lineup, and there are distinctive personalities from the regular versions to the SI and then the Type R at the top of the lineup, and that tells me there was a little bit more room to make this Tremor feel cool and special. Again, it's not a bad truck. It's just like I said back when I reviewed the Ranger Tremor. It's more of an FX4 enhancement package than anything else, which has its pros and its cons. There's no denying it looks cool, and it's got a bit more capability than the average F-150, but it's not a better truck than, say, a similarly priced Lariat that comes with more daily friendly features and for about the same starting price as this thing.